Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game from round 4 of this year's FIDE Grand Swiss. It is Moke and Niemann versus Richard Rapport, and it's quite a brutal game, but also I wanted to mention that for those of you who don't know, Richard Rapport is mainly the reason why the game between Hans and Magnus happened last year in the Singfield Cup, the controversial one where, they went to court and everything. It was Richard Rapport who was supposed to be playing in the event, but he withdrew from the tournament, and that's why Hans Niemann was placed in the tournament. So interesting stuff, and now they face each other in a classical game over the board. So let's check it out. Hans has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. We have d5 by Richard. We have pawn to c4, c6 going for the Slav defense, knight f3, knight to f6, and now pawn to e3. The quiet variation, we have bishop to f5, the shallop defense, and the knight to c3, pawn to e6, and knight h4 going after the bishop. So we've seen this many times. Nothing new here, bishop to g6 and queen to b3, putting pressure on the b7 pawn. So you have to defend it, queen to c7. Sometimes queen to b6 is also played, but queen to c7 is the more common idea. Bishop to d2, and now knight to e4, putting pressure on the bishop and knight here. So knight captures, bishop captures, and c captures on d5. And there are a couple of ways you could capture. You could recapture with c, you could recapture with e, captures on d5, bishop captures on d5, or you could even maybe play bishop to e7, just ignore the pawn here and attack the undefended knight. But then you get d6 in. Now if queen captures, the b7 pawn hangs, so the bishop has to capture, and now you continue development. Bishop to d3, let's say bishop to d5, and queen to c2, and we get to this position where the queen and the bishop are on a very natural squares. The knight will come back to f3 at some point, and everything is perfectly fine. But Rapport decided to play bishop captures on d5 right away, and we get a very similar position. Now, queen to c2 is the move that's always been played here, but here we have bishop to c4, and it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So, okay, bishop to e7 attacks the knight, knight back to f3, and knight to d7 now. We have queen back to c2, and now knight to f6. So both players just putting pieces on their belonging squares. Bishop to d3, and now you have to be careful. You might, think about, okay, let's just castle here to safety, and then think about our, game plan, where to develop pieces. But then e4 just blunders the bishop on d5. So you have to handle the bishop with care. Bishop captures on f3. This does mess up Hans's pawn structure, but it also does give Hans the advantage of the bishop pair, or maybe it's not going to be an advantage, it's the potential to have the advantage of the bishop pair. So g captures on f3, and now knight to d5, an excellent square for the knight, and the Hans will have to figure out, does he want to have this setup with f3, e4, and the d4, or does he want to have the setup with d4, e3, and this pawn to f4. So pawn to a3, first stopping knight to b4, as he does want to keep his bishop pair. If he allowed knight to b4, he would have to give up one of the bishops, and now queenside castles. We have queenside castles and pawn to g5. Now stopping pawn to f4 and also pawn to h4. We have king to b1 and also king to b8. We have rook to c1 and now just pawn to h6. We have queen to b3 and now even king to a8. You don't want the king on b8 if some tactics are possible. Bishop to c4 by Hans. We have queen to d7 and now bishop to a5, attacking the rook here. Rook to c8 and now rook h to d1. We have bishop to d8, trying to trade off the bishops, but Hans of course wants to keep his bishop. Bishop to e1, bishop to c7, and now pawn to h3 as the pawn was attacked here. So rook h to d8 and now pawn to a4. Now Hans says, all right, I don't really have a way of pushing anything here, but I can push the a pawn. Maybe if I can get a pawn to a5 and a6, I can open up the black king's position at least a little bit. So bishop back to b8, and now bishop to a5, repeating once again. Bishop to c7, and now bishop back to d2. We have bishop back to b8, and now king to a1. Queen to e7, and now bishop to a5, attacking the rook again. Bishop to c7, and bishop back to d2. We have bishop back to b8, and now rook to c2. So now Hans with some ideas of doubling up on the c file, bishop to d6, and again bishop to a5. So if nothing else, you are getting closer to that move 40. But also you are checking if Rapport really wants to repeat moves. And here, interestingly, he doesn't go back with bishop to c7. He actually plays rook to e8. And okay, now Hans plays pawn to e4, challenges the knight, and now you sort of have to choose between continuing the game and the draw, because if you go bishop to b4, then it's much easier to conclude this game to a sort of a peaceful resolution. Let's say e captures on d5, bishop captures on a5, now d captures on e6, f captures on e6, and okay, you will win the e pawn, but bishops are of opposite color, so not much that you will be able to do here. Let's say queen b4, queen captures, bishop captures, rook captures on e6, you trade everything off, and okay, it's you will move the rook somewhere. Let's say rook to f8. The doubled pawns are weak, so you should have all the all that you need to actually not lose this game and to get a nice draw. But he wanted more. He played knight to f4, now puts pressure on the h3 pawn, and bishop back to f1 with bishop to c7, offering a trade, and bishop to b4 now, attacking the queen. Queen to d7, again, not repeating with bishop to d6. It seems that Rapport also wants more from this game, and now Hans just continues pushing. Pawn to a5, pawn to a6, and now bishop to c5. And now already you can feel what Hans is dreaming of. He wants to give up the a5 pawn, and this is not great for black. If black captures the pawn, then it's going to be terrible. To give you an example, if bishop captures on a5, then the idea is queen a4. You attack the bishop, and now let's say you retreat with the bishop. It's a pretty straightforward idea. Bishop captures on a6, and after b captures, queen captures with check, and after king b8, just rook c3, and rook b3 will end the game. Even if you play queen b7 to stop rook b3 still wins the game, because now you lose the queen or you capture, and then queen to a7 is checkmate. So you can't move the bishop back. You're going to have to play something like queen to c7, and then the real idea behind the a-pawn sacrifice is pawn to b4, bishop to b6, and now rook a2, just piling up everything against that black king. King to b8, now rook to b1, and you might be able to hold this, but it is very unlikely. Even with engine perfect play, you probably lose this with black. So that's Hans's idea behind the pawn sacrifice. Richard did not capture it. He played rook c to d8, and now Hans doubles up on the c file. Rook d to c1, and now, again, it's something of Rapport's nature that probably made him do this. You could still play some moves like f6, you could play rook to b8, just repeat moves, and wait to see what Hans does, for Hans to move forward. But Rapport actually captures the pawn. Bishop captures on a5. And now, what's the difference between the rook being on c8 in the line that we've shown and the rook now being on d8? Is the rook on d8 somehow more powerful than in the line that we've shown? Well, Hans says, all right, show me why the rook on d8 is so much better than the rook on c8. So queen to a4, queen to c7, and now b4, like in the line that we've discussed, the bishop to b6. But now that the rook is not here helping out with the defense of the c pawn, Hans no longer has to prepare the attack with something like rook to a2 and rook to b1. Hans can go for bishop captures on a6 right away. And this is what he does. The point is now that if b captures, you throw in a bishop captures on b6, and after queen captures, the pawn is not defended. Rook captures on c6, and black resigns. That is why rook to d8 is the big difference here. Now, it doesn't matter. Even if you give this one check, king a2, and you give one more check, no more checks, next it's game over. So after bishop captures on a6, Rapport says, all right, I feel you have something there. He plays king to b8, but now rook to a2. Here, rook captures on d4 was played, trying to give up material in order to survive the attack, but now the position is completely winning for Hans. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Hans while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing the real weakness in black's position. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop back to b5. And this is the only retreat of the bishop that works. And the reason why it works is because the c6 pawn was weakened. Yes, that is true. So now you cannot capture the bishop. If you capture the bishop, of course, it's mate in 1, so you cannot play that. You have to play something else. King to c8, of course, you have to start running away with the king. But now bishop captures on b6, queen captures, and bishop captures on c6, as you are attacking the c6 square sufficiently. So, of course, you cannot capture it, otherwise you're going to lose your queen. Knight to d3 was tried by Rapport going after the rook on c1 that's undefended, but now just queen to a8 with check, king to c7, and bishop captures on e8. Okay, knight captures on c1, winning back some material, and now rook to c2 with check, king to d6, and now you have to be very, very careful. If you play rook captures on c1, then you allow the black king to escape, so you have to play something else. Queen to b8 check, the only move that wins, and Hans played it. The key is that you have to gain control over the c7 square in order to achieve this rook lift, rook to c7, and promote your rook to a full-grown pig. So king to e7, rook to c7 with check, and he was in this position on move 51 that Richard Rapport resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Now that the king starts running, it doesn't matter as the f7 square is covered, so rook captures on f7 check, king to g6, now you go for some discoveries, rook to d7 check, king f6, e5 with check, king to f5, bishop to g6 with check, and now if you go down the board, then rook to f7 is mate in 1, compliments of the doubled pawn on f2, and if you capture the bishop, then the queen is back into the attack, queen e8 check, king to f5, queen to f7 check, king captures on e5, and now queen g7 check, king f4, and of course rook to f7 or queen to f6, doesn't really matter, both are checkmate. So Rapport of course saw this, and after rook to c7 check, he resigned, and another wonderful victory for Hans Moke Niemann, who is doing now incredibly well in the tournament, and in round 5 he will be playing on board 3 facing none other than Alireza Firouzja, so we'll see what happens in that one. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Dino Vodopia, and I would like to thank John Gear Law Office LLC, Mario Milano, The Brooders on Spotify, and Stephen McCann for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.